Commander Alexis Reed had killed more sentient beings than she cared to remember. The veteran's cybernetic hand twitched involuntarily as she gazed out the viewport of Outpost Omega-7, her mind drifting to the Centauri campaign where she'd earned her reputation as the Butcher of New Damascus. 15 years of peace hadn't softened her edges. "Commander, we've detected an unregistered ship approaching the outer marker." Lieutenant Donovan's voice cut through her thoughts. Reed straightened her uniform. "Classification: unknown, ma'am. It's not broadcasting any recognizable signatures." The veteran squad stationed at Omega-7 consisted of the most decorated and most lethal soldiers the Terran Alliance had ever produced. Warriors considered too dangerous, too broken for civilian reintegration. They'd been posted to this backwater observation platform at the edge of known space, forgotten by the very society that sacrificed everything to protect. "Sound general quarters," Reed ordered, feeling the old familiar surge of adrenaline. "Inform Captain Volkov and Major Hernandez. I want the team assembled in 5. As klaxons blared throughout the station, Reed felt a familiar sensation beneath her artificial ribs, that hollow feeling of anticipation she'd first experienced in the killing fields of Europa. The feeling that had never truly left her. The team assembled in the tactical room, 8 hardened veterans, each bearing visible and invisible scars from wars most civilians couldn't even name. Captain Volkov, his face half reconstructed after the Battle of Proxima Centauri. Major Hernandez, who'd single-handedly held the Jovian line. Lieutenant Karim, whose neural implants still occasionally triggered combat flashbacks from the Mars Rebellion. "Talk to me, Donovan," Reed commanded as imagery from the long-range scanners materialized in the holographic display. "The vessel is approximately 500 meters in length. No weapons signatures detected, but the hull composition is." He paused, adjusting the sensors. "It's unlike anything in our database." The ship was beautiful in its strangeness, organic curves blending seamlessly with what appeared to be crystalline structures that shimmered even in the distant sunlight. "First contact protocol," suggested Karim, though her hand never strayed far from her sidearm. "We're not diplomats," growled Volkov, his reconstructed jaw clicking slightly as he spoke. "We're the thin line between humanity and whatever's out there." Reed studied the approaching vessel. After decades of warfare with various alien civilizations, humanity had carved out its place in the galaxy through blood and iron. They were feared, respected, avoided. No species had dared breach Terran space in over a decade. "It's slowing," Donovan reported, taking up position approximately 10,000 kilometers from the station. The communications console suddenly illuminated. "We're receiving a transmission." Reed nodded, and the main screen came to life. The being that appeared was Bechtel, but that's where any similarity to humanity ended. Its exoskeleton gleamed with an iridescent blue-green hue, multiple limbs moved with unsettling precision, and compound eyes reflected the light in fractured patterns. "Greetings, warriors of Earth," the translator rendered in a flat, synthetic voice. "We are the Tauri. We come seeking asylum." Reed's combat-honed instincts screamed danger, but she maintained her composure. Asylum from what? The alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been agitation. "From the ones who follow us. The Deathworlders." The veterans exchanged glances. They were the killers, the nightmares that haunted other species' dreams. What could possibly frighten such an advanced race enough to send them fleeing into human space? "How long do we have?" Reed asked. The alien's compound eyes seemed to dim. "They are already here." The tactical alert came 3 hours later, as Reed and her team were still debating the Tories' request for protection. Donovan's voice cracked over the comms. "Multiple signatures detected. They're not using conventional drives. They're just appearing." Reed sprinted to the command center, the rest of her team close behind. The main display showed a cluster of vessels materializing at the edge of their sensor range, angular, obsidian structures that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. 13 ships, reported Karim, her augmented eyes scanning the tactical readout. No energy signatures we recognize. Before Reed could respond, every screen on the station flickered and displayed the same image. A humanoid figure with ashen skin stretched taut over an elongated skull. Its eyes were solid black orbs, deep set above a noseless face with a lipless mouth. "Return what is ours," it stated in flawless standard English, "or be erased." Reed stepped forward. "I am Commander Alexis Reed of the Terran Alliance. You have entered restricted space without authorization. State your identity and purpose." The creature's head tilted at an unnatural angle. "We are the Nox Vidar. Your designation is irrelevant. The fugitives you harbor have violated the natural order. They will be reclaimed." Major Hernandez muttered under his breath. "They're talking about the Tory." "The beings aboard this station are under Terran protection," Reed replied. Her voice steadied, despite the chill crawling up her spine. "Any aggressive action will be considered an act of war against humanity." The Nox Vidar's expression didn't change. "Your species is unknown to us. Your threats are meaningless. You have one planetary rotation to comply." The transmission cut, leaving the command center in stunned silence. "I don't like this," Volkov said, his cybernetic eye whirring as it adjusted focus. "There's something wrong about them." Reed turned to their Tory guest, who had been watching the exchange with trembling limbs. "What exactly are we dealing with?" she demanded. "They are harvesters," the alien explained, mandibles clicking rapidly. "They consume the essence of sentient species. They collect civilizations. And why are they after you specifically?" pressed Reed. "Because we escaped. No one escapes the Nox Vidar. We discovered a way to shield ourselves from their detection. We are the first to ever flee successfully." Lieutenant Karim stepped forward, neural implants glowing faintly beneath her skin. "Commander, I've analyzed their ship configurations. If they wanted to destroy us, they already would have. They want something. They want the Tory," Reed concluded, "and they're not used to being denied." Reed directed her team to battle stations and ordered the station's modest defenses brought online. Outpost Omega-7 wasn't designed for major military engagements. It was a forgotten post for forgotten soldiers. 6 hours later, they received the response from Terran High Command. "Maintain defensive posture. Reinforcements unavailable. Diplomatic solution preferred. Protect Terran interests at all costs." Reed crushed the datapad in her cybernetic hand. "Protect Terran interests. They've abandoned us to die." Hernandez's laugh was hollow. "Wouldn't be the first time." As the deadline approached, Reed gathered her veterans in the armory. Each was checking and rechecking their weapons, old habits that had kept them alive through countless conflicts. "They're calling themselves Deathworlders," she said, loading her pulse rifle. "But they've never met humanity before. They don't know what we are, what we've done." Volkov's grin was predatory. "Then perhaps it's time for a proper introduction." Reed nodded grimly. "They think we're just another species to be harvested. Let's show them why humans are the apex predators of our sector." As the station's chronometer counted down the final minutes, Reed felt an emotion she hadn't experienced in years: purpose. She and her team of killers were once again humanity's first and last line of defense. The Nox Vidar would soon learn why the veteran killers of Earth were feared throughout the galaxy. When the Nox Vidar boarding craft breached Omega-7's outer hull, they expected minimal resistance. What they encountered instead was the distilled violence of humanity's most lethal warriors. Reed had positioned her veterans at strategic choke points throughout the station. Major Hernandez and Lieutenant Karim held the main corridor leading from the breach point, their augmented reflexes allowing them to target and eliminate the first wave of boarders with surgical precision. The Nox Vidar moved with inhuman grace, their elongated limbs bending at impossible angles as they poured through the rupture. They carried crystalline weapons that fired streams of scintillating energy, disintegrating everything they touched. "They're not wearing armor," Hernandez observed through the tactical network linking the veterans' neural implants. Overconfident bastards. Reed watched through the security feeds as the invaders advanced deeper into the station. Their tactics were unusual. No cover, no suppression fire, just relentless forward momentum, as if they expected their prey to cower in fear. They clearly had never fought humans before. Captain Volkov's voice crackled over the comm, in position with the heavy weapons, letting them get nice and bunched up in the cargo bay. Reed gave the order, "Spring the trap." Volkov's laughter was cut short by the thunderous roar of the station's automated defense turrets, which he had personally reconfigured. The cargo bay became a killing floor as high-caliber rounds tore through the Noxvidar ranks. To the veterans' surprise, the aliens didn't retreat. Instead, they continued advancing, climbing over their fallen comrades without hesitation. "They're not afraid," muttered Lieutenant Donovan from his position near the command center. "Why aren't they afraid?" The answer came moments later when Reed witnessed something disturbing on the security feed. The fallen Noxvidar were reconstituting, their shattered bodies knitting back together, rising once more to join the advance. "New intel," Reed broadcast to her team. "Standard munitions only slow them down. Aim for complete dismemberment or head destruction." The veterans adjusted their tactics immediately. Years of fighting across the stars had taught them adaptability above all else. Karim switched her rifle to plasma mode, the superheated bolts cauterizing as they severed limbs. Hernandez deployed nano-shrapnel grenades that reduced their targets to a molecular level. The Torre representative watched in horror and fascination from the secure command center as the humans fought with ferocious efficiency. "Your kind." It clicked, mandibles twitching. "You enjoy this." Reed reloaded her weapon, not bothering to deny it. The truth was written in the combat high flush on her face, in the steady pulse of her cybernetic limbs, calibrated for maximum killing efficiency. "We were built for this," she replied. "Your Deathworlders may harvest civilizations, but humans, we evolved killing everything that threatened us, including ourselves." The battle for Omega-7 raged for hours. The veterans, outnumbered 20-1, used every dirty trick, every desperate tactic they'd learned on 100 battlefields across the stars. When the Noxvidar finally reached the command center, only Reed and Volkov remained standing, their combat suits slick with the iridescent fluid that served as the aliens' blood. The Noxvidar commander entered last, its obsidian eyes fixed on the Tory cowering behind the humans. "Impressive," it said, voice devoid of emotion. "You fight with unusual fervor for a non-Deathworld species." Reed spat blood onto the deck. "Non-Deathworld? Is that what you think?" For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the alien's features. "Earth isn't just a Deathworld," Reed continued, her combat systems indicating that Hernandez and Karim were repositioning for a counterattack. "It's DET Deathworld. And we're what crawled out of it." The Noxvidar commander studied her with newfound interest. "Impossible. Our scans show your biology is too fragile." Volkov laughed, the sound grating through his damaged vocal synthesizer. "Shows what you know. We're not strong because of our bodies." Reed tapped her temple with her blood-stained cybernetic finger. "We're strong because of what's in here. The will to survive. The determination to win at any cost." As she spoke, Reed was buying time, allowing her wounded teammates to execute the desperate plan they'd formulated. The station's reactor was already in overload sequence, a final solution if all else failed. The Noxvidar seemed to sense the deception. "You cannot defeat us. We have harvested 1,000 worlds stronger than yours." Reed smiled, revealing teeth stained with her own blood. "Maybe so, but you've never harvested humans before." The explosion that rocked Outpost Omega-7 wasn't the reactor overload. That had been a diversion. The real surprise came from the station's maintenance bots, which Donovan had reprogrammed to ignite the emergency fuel reserves in the lower levels. The resulting blast tore through the decks, creating a momentary distraction that allowed Reed and her surviving veterans to execute a tactical retreat that military instructors would later study with awe, if any of them lived to report it. Status: Reed demanded over the tactical network as she dragged a wounded Volkov through the emergency access tunnels. Hernandez here. Got the Tory ambassador with me. Making for the escape pods. Karim reporting. I've secured the auxiliary control room. Working on locking down the Nox-Vedar ship's command protocols. Donovan here. I've got a plan, Commander, but you're not going to like it. Reed had known Donovan for 15 years. The quiet lieutenant had been with her since the Centauri campaign. When he said she wouldn't like a plan, it usually meant something brilliantly reckless. Let's hear it, she grunted, pausing to inject Volkov with a combat stimulant. Their ships appear to use some form of quantum entanglement for communication. If I can isolate the frequency, I might be able to transmit a virus into their fleet's network. And how exactly do you plan to get that virus to them? Reed asked, though she already knew the answer. Someone needs to get aboard one of their ships. The silence that followed was broken only by the distant sounds of the Nox-Vedar searching the station. I'll go, Volkov rumbled, struggling to his feet despite the grievous wound in his side. My combat chassis is already compromised. Might as well make it count. Reed wanted to argue, but combat logic overrode personal feelings. Volkov's extensive cybernetic modifications made him the most likely to survive long enough to complete the mission. Do it, she ordered. Rendezvous at extraction point Alpha in 20 minutes. As Volkov disappeared down a maintenance shaft, Reed contacted Hernandez. Change of plans. Get the Tory to the long-range shuttle. We're abandoning the station. Understood. What about the Nox-Vedar fleet? Volkov's going to introduce them to another human tradition. Which one? Reed's smile was grim. Scorched earth. Aboard the Nox-Vedar command vessel, the fleet overseer reviewed the battle footage with growing concern. These humans fought with a savagery that belied their fragile appearance. More troubling was their adaptability. Each time the Nox-Vedar deployed a new tactic, the humans countered almost immediately. Fascinating specimens, noted the chief harvester. Their neural patterns show unusual complexity. They would make valuable additions to the archive. They are unexpectedly resilient, agreed the overseer. Perhaps we should. An alarm interrupted them. One of their boarding crafts was returning, but broadcasting unusual energy signatures. Scan that vessel, ordered the overseer. Before the technicians could comply, Captain Volkov, his combat chassis now a walking bomb of jury-rigged explosives and hacked Nox-Vedar technology, breached the command deck. Special delivery from Earth, he growled, his remaining human eye gleaming with fierce determination. The detonation obliterated the command vessel's bridge, but that was merely Phase 1. As Volkov sacrificed himself, Donovan's virus, a savage piece of code developed during the AI wars, infiltrated the Nox-Vedar's entangled communications network. Aboard the long-range shuttle, Reed watched through the viewport as the Nox-Vedar vessels began firing upon each other, their systems corrupted by Donovan's malicious programming. What did you do? Asked the Tory ambassador, its compound eyes reflecting the distant explosions. We exploited their connectedness, replied Donovan, his fingers dancing across the control panel as he refined the virus remotely. Their ships are too integrated, too dependent on shared processing. One compromised node poisoned the entire network. Reed placed a hand on Donovan's shoulder. Will it hold them? Not forever, but long enough for us to reach the nearest Terran outpost and sound the alarm. As the shuttle accelerated away from the battle, Reed studied the Torai ambassador. You knew what they were when you fled to our space. You led them straight to us. The alien's mandibles clicked anxiously. We had no choice. Our long-range scans identified your species as primitive but aggressive, ideal for creating a diversion while we escaped. Hernandez's hand moved to his sidearm. You used us as bait. And yet, Reed interrupted, her voice cold. You've inadvertently done humanity a service. Without your arrival, we would have had no warning of the Noxvidar threat." She leaned closer to the alien. "So now you're going to tell us everything you know about them. Their weaknesses, their strengths, their patterns. Because humanity isn't just going to survive this encounter." Her cybernetic hand clenched into a fist. "We're going to make the Noxvidar regret ever hearing the word Earth." 3 weeks after the destruction of Outpost Omega-7, Commander Reed stood before the Terran Alliance Security Council, her combat uniform exchanged for formal military dress that did little to hide the new scars she'd acquired. "The Noxvidar aren't retreating," she explained, manipulating the holographic display to show the advancing enemy fleet. "They're regrouping, adapting to our tactics, and preparing for a larger incursion." Admiral Torres, a veteran of the Procyon conflict, studied the projections with a grim expression. "How many ships are we looking at, Commander?" "Based on the Tori intelligence and our long-range scans, we estimate a fleet of at least 300 vessels, sir. Possibly more." The council chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. Humanity had fought interstellar wars before, but nothing on this scale since the machine uprising a century earlier. "And their objective?" asked the Terran president, her augmented eyes narrowed. Reed's reply was blunt. "Total harvesting of sentient life. The Noxvidar don't just conquer, they collect. They extract and preserve the neural patterns of intelligent species, storing them in what they call the archive. It's part resource gathering, part collecting trophies. And you believe Earth is their next target?" The defense minister's voice was skeptical. "Not just Earth," Reed corrected. "All human-controlled worlds. The Noxvidar now recognize humanity as a Deathworld species, perhaps the most advanced they've encountered. That makes us both a threat and a prize." She activated the next part of her presentation, footage recovered from Volkov's sacrifice, showing the interior of the Noxvidar vessel. The council members watched in horror as the recording revealed chambers filled with suspended alien forms, their neural energy being steadily drained into the ship's systems. "This is what awaits us if we lose," Reed stated flatly. The council deliberated for hours, with military strategists proposing defensive perimeters and evacuation protocols. Reed remained silent throughout, until finally, the president turned to her. "Commander Reed, you've faced these enemies in combat. What is your assessment?" Reed stood, her cybernetic limbs whirring softly. "Conventional strategies will fail. The Noxvidar aren't like our previous adversaries. They don't fear death. They don't negotiate. They don't retreat." "Then what do you propose?" "Operation Thanatos," Reed said, uploading a classified file to the council's secure network. "A strike team comprised of veterans from the most brutal conflicts in human history. Soldiers who, like my team at Omega-7, understand what it means to face extinction." The defense minister scoffed. "You want to assemble a team of burnouts and PTSD cases." Reed's gaze hardened. "I want to assemble a team of killers who stared into the abyss and made the abyss blink first. Soldiers who've been fighting so long they've forgotten how to stop." She gestured to the schematics now displayed on the holographic projector. "While the fleet engages the Noxvidar in conventional space, Operation Thanatos will infiltrate their command structure and deploy a targeted weapon designed to attack their hive consciousness." "And where exactly will you find these specialized veterans?" asked Admiral Torres. Reed's smile was cold. "The same places the Alliance hides all its uncomfortable reminders of war. Rehabilitation centers, remote outposts, military prisons." 48 hours later, Reed stood in the hangar bay of the TAS Nemesis, watching as transport shuttles delivered her new team. Each veteran had been selected not despite their psychological profiles, but because of them. Soldiers whose combat effectiveness was matched only by their inability to reintegrate into peaceful society. Major Hernandez approached, datapad in hand. "They're all here, 28 of the most decorated and disturbed veterans in Terran history." Reed nodded, studying the assembled warriors. Some bore visible modifications, combat chassis, neural enhancements, tactical implants. Others showed their scars in different ways. 1,000-yard stares, trembling hands stilled only when wrapped around a weapon, the perpetual tension of those who never truly left the battlefield. The Thanatos Protocol has been authorized, Reed informed them, her voice carrying across the hangar. Each of you has been selected because you possess something the Noxvidar cannot comprehend. The human capacity for both creation and destruction. She activated the central display, showing their primary target, a massive Noxvidar vessel, designated as the archive ship. Intelligence provided by Artori, guest, indicates this is their most valuable asset. It contains the neural patterns of every species they've harvested. Destroy it, and we strike a blow they cannot recover from. A grizzled veteran with extensive facial scarring stepped forward. With respect, Commander, that's a suicide mission. Reed met his gaze unflinchingly. Yes, Colonel Blackwood, it is. That's why they sent us. The colonel's scared face split into a grin. Just checking. I'm in. One by one, the veterans signaled their acceptance. These were soldiers who had long ago accepted that they would never die peacefully in their beds. This mission offered something more valuable than survival. It offered purpose. As Reed outlined the infiltration plan, Karim and Donovan worked with the ship's engineers to modify their weapons based on what they'd learned at Omega-7. Phase-shifted ammunition to disrupt the Noxvidar's regenerative abilities. EMP grenades calibrated to their neural frequencies. Viral packages designed to corrupt their hive communication. The Tauri ambassador observed these preparations with its compound eyes, mandibles clicking nervously. Your species is disturbing, it finally said to Reed. You prepare for your own deaths with such thoroughness. Reed checked the action on her newly customized rifle. Death comes for everyone eventually. The difference is, humans decide to make it count. As the Nemesis accelerated toward the rally point where the Terran fleet was gathering, Reed received a priority communication from Terran intelligence. New scans had detected the Noxvidor fleet changing course, accelerating their timeline. Earth now had less than 72 hours before first contact with the invading force. Reed gathered her team of killers for one final briefing. The situation has changed. We launch in 6 hours. Colonel Blackwood voiced what everyone was thinking. That's not enough time for the fleet to reach us. No, Reed confirmed. We're going in alone. The stealth insertion craft, designated Charon, resembled a matte black arrowhead as it detached from the TAS Nemesis, its experimental cloaking systems rendering it nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. Inside, Reed and her team of veterans made final checks on their equipment, while Donovan reviewed the intelligence provided by their reluctant Tauri ally. The archive ship maintains minimal external defenses, Donovan explained, projecting a 3-dimensional schematic. They never expected anyone to target it specifically, or survive long enough to reach it. Reed studied the projected infiltration route. Their overconfidence is our advantage. What about internal security? Heavy. Karim interjected, her neural implants glowing faintly as she processed the data, but focused on preserving the archive rather than repelling borders. They'd never needed to defend against a direct assault. The veterans had been divided into 3 strike teams. Alpha would secure the entry point and establish an exfiltration route. Beta would plant demolition charges at key structural points. Gamma, led by Reed herself, would penetrate to the central archive chamber to deploy the quantum destabilizer. Major Hernandez, commanding Beta Team, voiced the concern that hung in the recycled air of the insertion craft. The Tauri intelligence could be compromised. They've lied to us before. Reed's expression hardened, which is why we brought insurance. She nodded toward the sedated form of their Tauri guest, restrained and monitored by medical systems. The alien had not volunteered for this mission, but Reed had insisted on its participation, partly as a guide, partly as leverage if things went sideways. 2 hours to intercept, announced the pilot, her voice steady despite the suicidal nature of their approach. Reed used the time to circulate among her veterans, checking equipment and mental readiness. These warriors had been broken by war in ways civilian psychologists could never understand. Each carried personal demons, nightmares that visited in the quiet hours. Yet here, on the precipice of another battle, they found clarity. Colonel Blackwood sat alone, methodically sharpening a serrated combat knife. An anachronism in an age of energy weapons, but a comfort to the old soldier. That blade's seen some action, Reed observed, taking a seat beside him. Blackwood nodded. First blood with it on Titan during the Separatist uprising. Last blood. He looked up with a grim smile, hopefully something that bleeds impressive colors. You didn't have to volunteer, Reed said. Your service record earned you retirement 3 times over. The colonel tested the blade's edge against his thumb, drawing a perfect crimson bead. What would I do in retirement? Grow vegetables. Write memoirs. Men like me don't know how to stop fighting, Commander. We just find different wars. Similar conversations play out across the craft. Quiet acknowledgments between kindred spirits who had found their purpose in violence. When the Tory ambassador regained consciousness, it was greeted by Reed's cold stare. Why? It clicked weakly, fighting the effects of the sedatives. Why am I here? Because you're going to ensure we reach the archive, Reed explained. Your pheromonal signature should help us bypass certain security measures. The alien's compound eyes reflected understanding and fear. You don't trust me. Trust is earned, Reed replied. So far, your kind has used humanity as a shield. Now you get to be on the front line with us. Charon's proximity alerts signaled their approach to the Noxvidar fleet. The massive ships hung in the void like obsidian monuments, their surfaces absorbing rather than reflecting starlight. At their center floated a structure that defied conventional design. The archive ship, its hull inscribed with symbols from 1,000 conquered civilizations. Initiating final approach, the pilot announced. Cloaking systems at maximum. Reed joined her at the controls, watching as they navigated through the Noxvidar formation. The enemy vessels showed no sign of detecting them. Their attention focused on preparations for the assault on Earth. There, the Tori indicated, pointing a trembling limb toward a recessed docking port on the archive ship's ventral surface. Maintenance access. Low security. The landing was textbook, a testament to the pilot's skill and the craft's advanced technology. As Charon secured itself to the alien hull, Reed addressed her teams one final time. You all know the mission. You all know the stakes. The Noxvidar think they've encountered just another species to harvest. Today, we show them the error of that assumption. She checked the charge on her pulse rifle. Humanity didn't climb to the stars by being easy prey. We fought our way off our death world, tooth and nail, generation after generation. That fighting spirit ends this threat today. The airlock cycled, and Alpha Team moved out, securing the immediate area with practiced efficiency. The interior of the archive ship was unsettlingly organic. Corridors that seemed to breathe, surfaces that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, an ambient temperature that matched human body heat precisely. It's like being inside a living thing, whispered one of the veterans, her grip tightening on her weapon. The Tory's mandibles clicked nervously. The archive absorbs characteristics from each harvested species. It learns. Reed signaled for Beta Team to begin placing their charges at junctions where biomechanical systems intertwined with more conventional technology. Meanwhile, Gamma Team pressed deeper into the vessel, following the pulsing light that grew stronger toward the center. Their first encounter with Noxvidar defenders came at a neural junction, a chamber where crystalline structures interfaced with organic matter. The aliens emerged from recessed alcoves, moving with that unnerving fluidity Reed remembered from Omega-7. But this time, the veterans were prepared. Modified weapons fired rounds that disrupted the Noxvidar's cellular cohesion, preventing their regenerative abilities. Specialized grenades released nanites programmed to target their neural pathways. The skirmish was brief but intense. 2 veterans fell. Their sacrifices added to the long list of names Reed carried in her memory. The survivors paused only long enough to collect dog tags before pushing forward. As they approached the central archive chamber, the resistance intensified. The Noxvidar deployed what appeared to be harvested technologies from other conquered species: gravitational distortion fields, chronometric disruption waves, psychic assaults that clawed at the edges of human perception. The veterans countered with the adaptability that defined their species. When conventional tactics failed, they improvised. When technology faltered, they relied on training. When training reached its limits, they fell back on the raw survival instinct that had carried humanity from caves to starships. Finally, bleeding and diminished, Gamma Team breached the archive chamber itself. The vast space defied human comprehension. A cathedral to conquest where countless transparent pods housed the suspended forms of alien species. Each containment unit pulsed with neural energy being drawn into the ship's central processor, a crystalline structure that towered hundreds of meters high. "My God," breathed Karim, her enhanced vision taking in the scale of the harvesting operation. "There must be millions of them." Reed forced herself to focus on the mission. "Deploy the destabilizer. We have 10 minutes to clear the blast radius." As Donovan prepared the quantum device, a voice echoed through the chamber, not heard with ears, but felt within the mind. Fascinating specimens. Such determination. Such waste. The Noxvidar overseer materialized before them, its elongated form hovering above the deck. Unlike its warriors, this being radiated age and power, the accumulated knowledge of countless harvested civilizations, evident in its multifaceted eyes. "You fight so desperately," it continued, studying the humans with detached curiosity. "Yet your resistance is ultimately meaningful. It provides valuable data on your species' neural patterns." Reed raised her weapon. "We're not here to be studied." "No," the overseer agreed. "You are here to be preserved. Your kind has proven exceptional, worthy of a special place within our archive. Your neural patterns will inform our evolution for millennia." The overseer gestured, and the chamber walls shifted, revealing pods containing the captured forms of Alphatine, still alive but connected to the ship's extraction systems. "Your companions have already contributed valuable insights," the overseer noted. "Such fascinating capacity for violence, yet also for self-sacrifice, a paradoxical species." Reed felt rage building within her, the cold, focused fury that had carried her through the worst battles of her career. "You've made a critical mistake." "Oh," the overseer seemed genuinely curious. "You think you're preserving the best of humanity by harvesting our neural patterns," Reed explained, subtly signaling Donovan to complete the destabilizer deployment. "But you've missed something fundamental about our species." The overseer drifted closer. "Enlighten me, Commander Reed." Reed smiled, the predatory expression of a human who had nothing left to lose. "What makes humans dangerous isn't our bodies or even our minds. It's our willingness to burn everything to the ground, if it means our enemies burn with us." Understanding dawned in the overseer's alien features as Donovan activated the quantum destabilizer. The device hummed to life, interfacing with the archive's crystalline structure. "You destroy millions of preserved civilizations," the overseer demanded, genuine shock in its mental voice. "Countless species whose only remaining existence is here within our archive. You didn't preserve them," Reed snarled, her finger steady on the trigger. "You imprisoned them, and we're setting them free." The overseer's form seemed to expand, darkness radiating from its core. "You cannot comprehend what you're destroying." "Maybe not," Reed acknowledged, "but we understand what we're saving." As the quantum destabilizer reached critical resonance, reality itself seemed to warp around the crystalline structure. The pods containing harvested species began to pulse with increasing intensity. "Gamma Team, fall back to extraction point," Reed ordered through the tactical network. "Beta Team, status on charges." "Charges set," Hernandez confirmed. "T-minus 8 minutes to detonation." The Overseer launched a desperate psychic assault, bombarding the humans with sensory overloads designed to incapacitate. But the veterans' neural implants, designed to withstand battlefield trauma, filtered the worst of the attack. "You cannot escape," the Overseer warned as Reed and her remaining team members fought their way toward the exit. "Even if you destroy this vessel, the Nox-Vidar are eternal. We will find your homeworld. We will harvest your species." Donovan, blood streaming from his nose from the psychic backlash, laughed bitterly. "You still don't get it, do you? We're not just trying to escape." Reed finished his thought. "We're making sure you never threaten another world again." As they battled through the corridors, the ship around them began to change. The quantum destabilizer wasn't simply a bomb. It was unraveling the very technology that sustained the archive, causing a cascading failure that spread throughout the vessel's systems. The captive neural patterns, freed from their containment, surged through the ship's networks. Countless alien consciousnesses, held prisoner for millennia, found themselves unexpectedly liberated. And they were angry. Part 7. Deathworld Legacy. The Nox-Vidar fleet received the distress signal from the archive ship 23 minutes after Reed's team initiated their assault. By then, it was already too late. Aboard the Nox-Vidar command vessel, the Supreme Harvester watched in mounting horror as diagnostics showed the archive's systems failing catastrophically. The neural patterns, the accumulated knowledge and consciousness of thousands of harvested civilizations, were not simply being destroyed. They were escaping. "Impossible," the Supreme Harvester whispered, its mental voice echoing through the command nexus. "The containment protocols are absolute." A subordinate approached, its elongated form trembling. The human infiltrators deployed a quantum-level disruptor. But there's something else. The archive is experiencing that rebellion. On the archive ship, Reed and her surviving team members fought their way through corridors now filled with chaos. The ship's internal defenses turned against its masters as liberated neural patterns seized control of automated systems. Nox-Vidar warriors found themselves trapped by security fields, targeted by their own weapons platforms. "What the hell is happening?" Karim asked, ducking as an environmental control panel exploded overhead. The Torai ambassador, still accompanying them under duress, clicked its mandibles in what might have been awe. "The archive. The stored patterns. They're taking control." Reed understood immediately. They're fighting back. Every species the Nox-Vidar harvested, they are using the ship against their captors. A mental voice, different from the Overseer's, composed of countless overlapping consciousnesses, reverberated through the corridor. "Humans," it said, the word carrying emotions too complex to name. "We have waited millennia for this opportunity. Your actions have created an opening." Reed kept her weapon ready, unsure if this new entity was ally or enemy. "Who are you?" "We are the Collected," the voice replied. "All those the Nox-Vidar believed they had conquered, all those they thought they had preserved. We have existed in a half-life, neither truly alive nor dead, our consciousness harvested but never extinguished." Donovan's eyes widened as he checked his scanner. "Commander, the destabilizer's effects are spreading throughout the ship faster than predicted. We need to move. Your device has weakened the neural barriers," the Collected continued. "We can handle the rest. But you must survive to warn your people." "Warn them about what?" Reed demanded. "About us," came the reply. "About what happens when you imprison consciousness itself for thousands of years." The implication sent a chill down Reed's spine. The Collected weren't simply escaping. They were planning something. "Beta team," she ordered through the tactical network, "disengage and head for extraction. Immediate evacuation." As they fought their way back to the Karen, Reed witnessed the full extent of the archive's transformation. Nox-Vidar warriors convulsed as their neural networks were invaded by the very beings they had harvested. The ship's organic components mutated, taking on characteristics of dozens of different species. It was evolution accelerated to a nightmarish degree. the combined knowledge of thousands of civilizations repurposing the archive for their own ends. When the last surviving members of Operation Thanatos reached the extraction point, only 14 of the original 28 remained. Colonel Blackwood covered their retreat, his combat chassis overloaded as he held a choke point against waves of frenzied Noxvidar. "Go!" he roared over the tactical net, his life signs fluctuating wildly on Reed's HUD. "I'll buy you the time." Reed wanted to argue, but the soldier in her recognized the necessity of the sacrifice. "See you on the other side, Colonel." "Not if I see you first, Commander," came his grim reply before his signal went offline. The Charon detached from the archive ship as internal explosions began to consume the massive vessel. The Noxvidor fleet, recognizing the threat too late, turned their weapons on their own archive, perhaps hoping to contain whatever was being unleashed. "Will the destabilizer be enough?" Hernandez asked as they accelerated away from the combat zone. Reed watched through the viewport as the archive ship began to fracture, strange energies pulsing from within. "I think we just lit the fuse. The Collected are providing the explosion." 3 days later, battered and running on emergency power, the Charon rendezvoused with the approaching Terran fleet. Reed stood before the combined admiralty, her formal report delivered with the clinical precision expected of a veteran commander. But her personal log entry that night revealed the deeper implications of what they had witnessed. The Noxvidar underestimated humanity because they measured strength in conventional terms: biological resilience, technological advancement, psychic potential. They failed to recognize that humanity's true power has always been our willingness to defy overwhelming odds, to rage against extinction itself. But I fear we may have released something equally dangerous. The Collected, the neural patterns of thousands of species, refined through millennia of imprisonment, have gained their freedom, and they have inherited the advanced technology of their captors, along with a justified hatred for those who imprisoned them. Long-range telemetry shows the Noxvidor fleet in disarray. Nearly 60% of their vessels have been compromised by whatever force the Collected have become. The archive itself has transformed into something our sensors cannot classify, neither fully ship nor fully organism. The Torai ambassador, before requesting political asylum, warned that we may have simply exchanged one threat for another. I'm not so certain. The final transmission we received from the Collected was cryptic but significant. Deathworlders freed us. We remember. When we have settled our debt with the Harvesters, we will return. Prepare your people. The galaxy changes today. High Command has established a permanent defense perimeter at the edge of our territory. But I doubt conventional forces will matter much if the Collected choose to visit Earth. This isn't a situation we can fight our way out of. Perhaps that's the ultimate irony. We killer veterans, the discarded weapons of humanity's past wars, may have ushered in an era where our particular skills are obsolete. The new threats won't be fought with pulse rifles and combat chassis, but with diplomacy and understanding. The Noxvidor saw us as specimens to be harvested. The Collected see us as liberators to be honored. Neither truly understands what humanity is, both the terrible destruction we're capable of and the remarkable compassion that drives us forward. My veterans and I were created by war, shaped by conflict, preserved to fight battles no one else could stomach. We were humanity's nightmares, turned against our enemies. But perhaps, just perhaps, our final legacy will be something more than destruction. End log. Commander Alexis Reed, Operation Thanatos. May whatever gods exist have mercy on us all. 6 months later, as humanity expanded its defensive capabilities and the Terran Alliance incorporated the Torai refugees into its protection, deep space monitoring stations detected an unusual signal originating from the former location of the archive ship. When decoded, the message was brief but clear. The Harvesters are contained. Their technology is ours. Their knowledge serves us now. We remember Earth. We remember the Deathworlders who showed us that captivity is never absolute. When we have finished our transformation, we will meet as equals. Prepare well. Reed, now promoted to admiral and tasked with establishing first contact protocols for potential interaction with the collected, found herself in an unexpected role, not as humanity's weapon, but as its ambassador. The killer veterans, once deemed too dangerous for civil society, became the vanguard of a new initiative. Who better to understand the complex mixture of gratitude and vengeance that drove the collected? Who better to represent humanity to beings who had witnessed both their capacity for violence and their willingness to sacrifice for others? As Reed reviewed the plans for the first diplomatic mission to the region, now designated as Collected Space, she reflected on the strange journey that had brought her here. The nightmares of war still visited her. The cybernetic hand still twitched with phantom memories of combat. But there was something else now, a purpose beyond killing. Admiral. Her aide interrupted her thoughts. The Tory delegation is ready to depart. Reed nodded, rising from her desk. Tell them I'll be there shortly. She paused at the viewport, gazing out at the stars, each one potentially home to beings humanity had yet to encounter. Beings who might see them as enemies, as allies, or as something in between. We're still killers, she murmured to herself, remembering Volkov's sacrifice, Blackwood's last stand, and countless other veterans who had fallen so humanity could survive. But perhaps we can be more than that now. The veterans who had once been humanity's worst nightmare had faced something even they feared. And in doing so, they had changed the course of galactic history. Not bad for a bunch of burnouts from a death world.